millions of dollars, practicing law 24 hours a day, blah, blah, blah. Let's get rid of the smoke and mirrors. None of that really matters. What does matter? Having a medical doctor as your attorney. Doctor. Attorney. And now, the official injury law firm partner of the Denver Broncos. Ramos Law. What makes us different makes us better.
Good morning, crew. It is Tuesday. It is January 27th. I can't believe it's January 27th already. I'm typing something into Facebook here, an invitation, if you will, for somebody to join me here this morning. I just posted that comment there. So that is into Facebook. We are off and running. Thanks for starting your day with me. It was a little bit gusty in some spots yesterday as we were swapping out air masses. To be expected. We talked about that up against the hills and over some of the eastern slopes of the mountains. And certainly felt better yesterday than what we had over the weekend. No doubt about that. And I want to start off this morning with Gunnison, because Gunnison is kind of the sort of left out stepchild, bastard stepchild, if you will, of Colorado weather. Because look what's happened over the last 12 hours, just gone down below zero and stayed there. And 17 below here early this morning. And unfortunately for Gunny, is the only spot that hasn't seen an increase in temps from this time yesterday. In sharp contrast, notice the Front Range, the plains, most of the mountains. Colorado Springs is 40 degrees warmer than 24 hours ago. 40 degrees warmer. And we've actually started warming up here since 1 o'clock this morning when east of the foothills, parts of town dropped into the teens for a little bit, but now we have warmed up here. And part of the reason for that is that we have a wave moving through. Now, numbers all over the place this morning. This is a classic Colorado sort of wintry day here. Gunny at 17 below, the Springs at 35 to lead the way. Do the math on that. That is 52 degrees difference. Yeah, 52 degrees difference. Pretty wild stuff out there. So that is a bit of a difference out there for us early this morning. Some of you checking in here. I want to give you a shout out early this morning. Cindy is checking in from the Springs. Cindy, good morning. Stephen checking in as well. Stephen, good to have you with us this morning. And Sherry is also checking in. And Steve says, different Steve, seems like the wind's been blowing nonstop in Canyon for 2 months straight. But there's a reason for that, Steve. You guys coming out of Bighorn Canyon there are in a low spot of the Rockies. And so you get what we call gap flow wind. That's also why you're in a spot known as the Banana Belt. So let's check out what he says, and I'll see what my stuff is saying. I've got 5 miles per hour there, but there is a station just to the west of you where it's blowing a little bit stronger than that. So yeah, you see Walsenburg at 21 miles per hour early this morning. Yeah, so there are still a few windy spots, but not like yesterday. I'm starting off with Lyman here on the cameras because we've had some radar echo out this way as I transition to our forecast for today. Always want to give you that in the first few minutes here of Mornings with Meister. This is the wave we were talking about yesterday. I had it up on YouTube. I had it in the app, had it up on the website. This sort of short-term forecast that I do a few times every day. We have seen the sunshine from yesterday be replaced by clouds this morning that has that pretty sunrise going out in Lyman. And I wanted to start with that camera because there are a few radar echoes out that way. That doesn't mean it's making it down to the ground, as the radar beam ends up looking up into the sky out around Lyman. It's a little more than 2,000 feet up above our head, but there are a couple snowflakes up that way, and you see the clouds overhead for the rest of the area. Now, the question is, do those stick around for the rest of the day? Because when there are clouds this time of year, it certainly impacts how it feels. I don't care what the temperature is. It just impacts the feel. So I'll show you SkyCast here because we are going to keep them around for the first part of the day. Then as we get into the afternoon, late morning over the mountains, kind of working off to the east for the rest of the day, we'll break the clouds up some, at least thin them out, and I think we end the day with some sun. So until that happens, that is going to impact the feel. So I'd have a coat today. I don't think it's going to be as breezy, certainly not as gusty over some of the eastern slopes and some of the foothill areas as it was yesterday. There will be some exceptions. Notice Canyon City, Steve, you are a little bit higher here in the computer model than some other areas. But these numbers not as high as yesterday. And like I said, I don't think it's going to be as gusty. As we move through the day, some of us will get some gusts over 20 miles per hour in some localized spots. In addition to the clouds making it feel different than yesterday, the temps will make it feel different than yesterday because 50 is tougher to come by today. Yesterday, we actually had quite a few spots east of the mountains that got there, but today we're in the 40s, and that's because that passing wave that's bringing the clouds overhead, it also has a little cold front with it. And so those two things are going to make today feel different than yesterday. There's no doubt about that. Real quick, I'll transition into tomorrow. And you can see here that I think the breezes pick up a little bit more. You see as we head through the morning, Canyon, Walsenburg, we're running between 15 and 20. But we hit the afternoon over the mountains. There are more areas that are a little bit higher on the wind gusts than we'll have today. And that's because we have the next in an approaching wave to talk about. and I'm going to do our extended forecast here in a little bit. I'm going to come back to some of your comments here early this morning. Mitty joins us and says, hey, it's much nicer outdoors early this morning. Yeah, Mitty, I agree. It is better for sure than what we had this time yesterday. Weston checking in this morning, west of Trinidad. Teresa is joining in, and looks like she has a service member as a spouse or a partner. So Teresa, thank you all for your service to our country, because I know that is something that, you know, the whole family has to pick that flag up and bear it. So I appreciate that. Janelle is joining from Springfield in the southeastern corner of Colorado early this morning. Janelle, thanks for that. Wanted to take a minute and talk about something here. You remember me talking last week about the big storm in the eastern United States. You know, I've got lots of friends that do weather across different parts of the country. In fact, there are lots of them doing what I'm doing that were in TV markets for a long time, and kind of, you know, we all look at data. We see how things have been changing, and local, you know, TV viewership going down in a big way, and doing what I'm doing here on social media, their own app, their own websites, 24-hour channels like I have. And so I was working with a lot of them leading up into the weekend and through the weekend. You know, lots of them working really long days. I got a buddy, Matt Lobbin, in Mississippi, some historic icing in that area. He had the governor on his show yesterday and was asking him questions about what are people supposed to do who are cold, who are without power, who are without propane. And, you know, it's good perspective for us here in Colorado. If there's an emergency that happens, you know, like maybe we get a big blizzard or something like that, I mean, you're kind of on your own for the first, let's say, maybe 72 hours, first 3 days of a disaster like that, because it takes a while to mobilize stuff, especially at a large scale if many people in the society are dealing with it. So you got to, you know, it's something useful for us to keep in mind and to be ready for those kinds of things. But I wanted to talk about it because it was a multiple day event over the Southeast. And some of my friends were just vilified on social media when in the first 12 to 24 hours of the event, like there wasn't a lot happening yet. And people were just being nasty. And there's something about being behind a keyboard here where we will type things on these that we would never say to someone's face. And so if you ever get like that, if you're ever worked up about something and you want to sit here and take a second, have some perspective, give some grace, and, you know, keep in mind that people doing weather are predicting the future. And sometimes razor thin differences way up above your head can make differences in what happen at the ground, and with icing and sleet and snow, things like that. I mean, one temperature can make a lot of difference. So anyways, I felt for a lot of them. I was on their pages and whatnot, and I don't know. Our society sometimes makes me question kind of what's happening. If you have any stories to share, if you have anybody that lives in the eastern United States or family members that are dealing with that and you want to share that, you can come on the show with me. I've got my double box ready for somebody to come on. I typed the link you can use into your phone or into your computer app in the comments on Facebook. It's vmix.at/1 small r big J big S small L1. I need to build a little super down here to have that. But, you know, Peaks to Plains weather's our weather together, and I'd love to have you on to talk about that with me. So here you have a couple minutes to do that. You can jump in and just be patient. When I get back from the extended forecast here, we can hang out, we can talk a little bit. So I'm going to now kind of transition to what I'm watching for, because I've got our next storm potential in our forecast. So if you're just joining us overnight, we've had a wave come in. There are some radar echoes out here. I haven't been able to find anything making it down to the ground. But as I widen the view here, a lot quieter, at least weather-wise, across the eastern United States. A couple lake effect snow showers. It is still cold, and that's hampering efforts of some melting and emergency response and all that. But you can see here, we've got a ridge off to our west. We're kind of in between these two things, sitting in northwest flow, and we've got this next wave moving through here. There's another one on the way for Wednesday that will also move through the area, and that's the one that'll pick up the wind a little bit. Then we head toward the end of the week. I've got the upper level energy colorized on my map here. That's a decently strong wave. See that kink in the black lines? That shows me that there's some energy in the atmosphere, and that's driving a decently strong cold front at the surface. And so what I've been wrestling with the last couple of days is, do we cool down much here for Friday? And I have what's about, by the time these air masses get into Colorado, about 8,000 feet or so represented here, because it's some pretty cold air again. And I just have to figure out how far west does this come? And usually it comes a little bit farther west than the computer models show. So I actually have a little bit more noticeable of a drop for the end of the week into our forecast, because until I'm certain that's not getting here, I just kind of want to err on the cooler side of things, because that'd be a bigger impact. And then if I end up warming it up at the end, I doubt you'll be upset about that. So we'll keep watching that wave here. Still have this ridge over the west and this trough over the east here. This is going to be another maybe significant winter storm for the weekend for the East Coast, if you can believe that or not. They don't want that, but that's how it's kind of ending up for them. And then we have a wave that will be diving across the northern plains over the weekend, and I don't think that one's going to do much to our forecast here. In fact, the weekend looking pretty good right now, even if we cool back some on Friday. For Colorado Springs here, this is the forecast for Saturday and Sunday. I think really nice. We'll be in the 50s. That's a 180 from what we had last weekend. So unless that wave ends up a little bit closer, I think we're good. Then we get into next week here, and you can see the ridge breaking down, because there's a wave that is far enough to the west and has enough of a kink to it Monday night that makes me go, ooh, there's something to watch there. And yeah, I'll put the computer model clouds and precipitation on that, and as we head into late Monday, there's something to watch for here. And so the timing of what could be some changes and perhaps our next storm and some much needed snow for the mountains again would be Monday night into Tuesday. And you can see this computer model here is developing a circulation, which is always interesting and something that we'll want to watch for, because on the back side of it, we can get some wind to pick up. So I'm not going to get too into the details here. I mean, it's a week away, but it's something to watch for. And so I do have that in my extended forecast, and I updated that in the app this morning. So if you go to Tuesday, if you go to the Days Ahead tab at the bottom of the Peaks to Plains weather app and you click on that for where you are, it should say, hey, I'm watching a storm, at least the potential, and I'll keep you updated on that over the next couple of days. So that's the difference you get in the Peaks to Plains weather app. There's two things that you'll find in the extended forecast. I have this 43 in there, again, looking at Colorado Springs, but for most areas you should see could be colder. I'm watching how far west some colder air comes. Versus if you just have the default weather app, or you're checking around into other weather apps on your phone, you just get some number. It doesn't tell you hey, be aware of this. And hey, I'm watching the chance of a storm on Tuesday. So if you haven't downloaded the Peaks to Plains weather app yet, you need to do so, because I know you want weather information 24 hours a day, and I am there to give it to you. So go ahead and download it here. And then keep your location on. I harp on that because that's how I can take care of you. So like on Sunday, when we had that intense line of snow that was moving south across the plains, actually ended up with a snow squall warning for areas in Pueblo and northward. I can geo-target where you are and say, hey, Steve or Jill or Tammy, this is for you. This is coming your way. So download the Peaks to Plains weather app. And if I might ask you, please do me a favor and talk about it with friends and share it with friends. I mean, Peaks to Plains weather is our weather together. It's meant to be organic. It's how I'm serving my community and how I am evolving to serve you better and when you need it. And so I'd be honored if you downloaded the Peaks to Plains weather app and then shared that with your friends. So, okay. Kathleen is agreeing with me with what I said before about keyboard warriors. Yeah, I don't know what it is about our society with that. Like, we get so worked up so quick about things. And it's probably because of our phones and social media, but, you know, just take a moment if you feel the blood pressure going up. Naoma saying good morning, good morning. Bart Jennings saying good morning. Bart is a great dude. He's a good friend of mine. Bart is the baseball coach at the Classical Academy where my son went to school, where my daughter is. She's in her senior year. And he gives so much time back to young people and is such a good man. And I'm honored to call him friend. So Bart, thanks for watching this morning. Isaac said we showed it off at our last fire department meeting. Isaac is a wildland fire with a SoCo Wildland team, a multi-agency wildfire response team in the Pikes Peak region. And I am actually going to be helping them out with some weather stuff here in early February with some training that they are doing. So appreciate that. And then there's a good question here, and this is the kind of feedback I like because I want my weather app to be for you guys. Will an allergy index be on the app? Yeah, I can certainly put that on there and make that part of the website as well. That's something that would be an opportunity for a local business if they are so interested to partner with me on that. And if you have a local business and you'd like to advertise on Peaks to Plains weather, you can do so in the top right-hand corner of the website. Put your information in here and we can figure out how to grow together. Also on here is where my partners are. The advertisers that are currently working with Peaks to Plains weather. Lots of them on there. I added a couple yesterday, so I need to do work on this page today. And thank you all for doing that with me and making Peaks to Plains weather available to everyone in southern Colorado. So, yeah, last chance for questions here. If you have something specific you want to know about forecast-wise or anything else, you can type that into the Peaks to Plains our live stream here on Facebook, on Instagram. It's on the app. The 24-hour channel is on the app here. And when I'm doing live streaming on social media and everywhere else, that takes over the 24-hour channel. So you get to watch it on the homepage of the app, which is pretty cool. And since I'm streaming right now, my Wi-Fi doesn't work as good when I'm streaming, which is fine because I want it to stream. But I was going to show it to you on there, but yeah, download the Peaks to Plains weather app and find out. Patricia saying good morning. Good morning, Patricia. Appreciate you watching here early this morning. So let's do a little bit of a recap for those of you that maybe missed the front end things. Look how much warmer it is compared to this time yesterday. Colorado Springs almost 40 degrees warmer over southern Colorado. And that's a nice looking map right there if you're a fan of warmer weather. Jeremy, man, look, Jeremy's a blessed guy. Check this out. How are the clouds looking for the evening? I'd love to get out in my observatory. Hey, you have an observatory? That's awesome. Yeah, I think the clouds that we've got out there this morning will get out of here for tonight. So I think you'll be good. Is there a way to join chat on the app? Mike says. You know, there's not currently, Mike. I'll think about how I might execute that. That gets a little bit tougher to do, and I'll work on that maybe over the next few months. See if I can get that in the app. Do you expect a pattern flip going into the rest of the winter into spring? Cameron asks. And Cameron, that's a good question. We do seem to start transitioning to, a weakening La Nina that we've had. And the challenge for that, if you want like a big pattern flip, is that it takes several months or multiple months for that transition to happen. And so it does look like as we get into the back half of next year, we might actually transition to an El Nino, which is the El Nino Southern Oscillation is the temperature of the equatorial waters off the west coast on the equator of South America. And it's one of the cycles that we've learned about in the last 40, 50 years over the globe that can drive global weather patterns. My friends at the Climate Prediction Center, their outlook for February, March, and April, and seasonal forecasting, I'll be honest with you, is way different than what I do. It is not my wheelhouse. I'm trying to learn more about it, but I don't pretend to be an expert in that in any way. And so this is oftentimes me passing on information from other people, because figuring out what's going to happen on your doorstep today, tomorrow, and the next week is a hell of a lot different than what's going to happen 4, 5, 8 months from now. But my friends at the Climate Prediction Center, you know, they say there's better chances than not, especially over the southern tier of the U.S., that will be above average from a temperature perspective and colder than average for the northern part of the U.S. And precipitation-wise, Colorado, the sort of gray area that you see right in here that really isn't showing up on the scale, means that from a climate driver perspective, there's equal chances in here that we could be above or below average. And then as you get into the colored areas and you get down here where it's sort of showing up kind of darker, it means there's a better signal of being below average precipitation-wise than equal chances. And then you see the darker greens is where there's a stronger signal that we're more likely to be above average. So hopefully that answered your question there, Cameron. I will say this, though, about the spring. As you get into March and April, you know, the atmosphere gets more dynamic, because we're starting to move out of the cold time of the year as we head toward the spring equinox. You know, we're starting to lean back toward the sun here in the northern hemisphere. And so with bigger temperature contrasts, you end up with stronger storm systems and more rapid movement of moisture, stronger jet streams. And so you have potential for, you know, blizzards and big spring storms that if you just get one of those in the right place in southern Colorado, it can make a map like this. It can almost throw it off the scale, because you can get, you know, some significant moisture from just one storm. And it doesn't mean the pattern over a couple months. It can kind of throw those numbers off, if that makes sense. I mean, if we have a storm where we get 1.5 inches of liquid, and some of that falling as snow, it can skew our numbers when you look over a couple months. So just something I thought I would mention there. Before I get out of here today, Patricia says, thanks for the information. You're welcome, Patricia. I hope it was useful for you. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day, a great Tuesday. I am heading out to my friends at Advanced Impressions in Colorado Springs to shoot something with them. Advanced Impressions has made my merch. And if you'd like some merch, you can get some of that on peakstoplainsweather.com. I got my merch page up here. I'll load that up for you. So Advanced Impressions is a local company that makes all of this stuff. And I got an email yesterday from somebody that bought a shirt for her husband, and he was wearing it at Orange Theory Fitness. And I will show that to you tomorrow. I'll post it on social media today. If you have some Peaks to Plains merch, post a picture of yourself wearing it. I'll share it here. Also, if you work at a doctor's office or a restaurant and you put the Peaks to Plains 24-hour channel on Roku or Fire TV up on your TV screens, take a picture. And I'll put that on and share it as well with everybody. I want to be able to do that. The folks at Advanced Impressions, Tom and Jim and everybody else, they actually had a contract with the NFL. If the Broncos had won on Sunday, they would have been in their shop Sunday night printing out the AFC Championship shirts and merch. And last time the Broncos won the Super Bowl, they did that. So they had all hands on deck ready to do that. It's kind of an interesting story that you don't hear about. There were a bunch of shirts that were at their location and then they had to ship back since obviously the Broncos didn't win. So I'm heading out to them today, and they're one of my partners, and I thank them for that. They're great people. So crew, that is it for me here on this Tuesday morning. We are approaching 7 o'clock. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you next time on Mornings with Meister every Monday through Friday morning on the Peaks to Plains weather platforms from 6:30 until I decide to be done. So now I'm done. Have a good day.